secretary. Sitting on my right is the board acting chairperson, Mr. Douglas Tureon. He is going to read our statement. Okay. On my far right is Mr. Thomas Mkwananzi from CISO.
Thank you, Mr. Manai. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity. The National Vendors Union Zimbabwe, NAVUZ, would like to condemn the brutalization, arrests, and subsequent detention of 16 defenseless vendors yesterday, 15th of July 2015. What is more worrying about this development is that the police went on to assault and arrest the leaders of the union, who, on learning that the vendors were being assaulted at townhouse, rushed there to try and calm the situation. As they tried to peacefully negotiate with council officials, they were promptly arrested and detained. The arrested leaders from the National Vendors Union of Zimbabwe at the moment are the chairperson, Mr. Stan Jorwadza, the national director, Mr. Samuel Wadzai, and the office administrator, Ms. Lucy Makunde. The group is still in detention at Harare Central Police Station. 5 of the group sustained serious injuries during the melee, and efforts to accord them medical attention have been frustrated by the ZRP. What is shocking about this well-choreographed violent campaign on the vendors, which began with the demolition of vending structures at Cleveland House, Arizende Packet and Copacabana, followed by the petrol bombing of vendors' wares along Speaker Avenue, and eventually the wholesale arrest of vendors and confiscation of their wares on a daily basis, is that it is coming at a time when NAVUZ is calling for dialogue to find a long-lasting solution to the problem affecting the vending enterprise. What is also shocking is the fact that the vendors we have come under siege are not all of them the so-called illegal vendors, but are registered and are in possession of the requisite registration papers, but have not been allocated any space in the created designated vending sites. This violent eviction of vendors from the streets is just the most recent of the many vicious, irrational, barbaric acts perpetrated by the municipal officers acting in ZRP against innocent Zimbabweans desperately trying to eke a livelihood out of the current economic status. Like what we have always said as a union of vendors, this will only further galvanize the vendors to unite against such policies as would seek to deny them their right to economic participation. NAVUZ reiterates that there is need for a policy dialogue on vending which would lead to a peaceful resolution of the current challenges that characterize the vending enterprise, the continuation of which can throw the country into civil strife. Such a dialogue must include all the relevant stakeholders in the vending enterprise. This will empower the vendors to actively participate in the decisions that affect them. To this end, NAVUZ has already reached out to the new Minister of Local Government, Public Works and Urban Development, the Minister of Small and Medium Enterprises and Cooperative Development, and several other town councils and invited them for dialogue in this regard. The local authority continues to justify its violent actions on the basis that these are illegal vendors and therefore criminals. Vendors, old women and members living with disabilities included, are brutalized because they are termed illegal when their real crime is trying to survive honestly in an economy that has dehumanized and stripped them of their dignity. One wonders who really then is a criminal. The law should be used The law should be used to go after criminals and not for criminals to hide behind the law and unleash unwarranted violence and human rights abuses on an already marginalized and vulnerable section of Zimbabweans. NAVUZ would like to appreciate the efforts made by its leaders in trying to stand for the rights of the vendors who are in vulnerable group. In that regard, NAVUZ demands that the following be done: that the local authority stops forthwith the eviction of vendors from their only source of livelihood, that is the street, until and unless due processes are followed in providing alternatives. That the local authority puts an end to the violent campaign against innocent vendors. In this regard, it is our belief as National Vendors Union that violence will not solve anything. There is a bigger problem to the vending enterprise than what meets the eye. The government, in employing violence against its citizens, and in this case specifically the vendors, is only applying cosmetic solutions to a problem that is glaringly visible for all to see. My sisters in this house will agree with me when I say that when you apply face powder, you only hide the blemishes, but you do not remove the blemishes. The face powder will hide the blemishes for a while, they will come back again. In other words, you are going to have to keep applying the face powder. And this then makes us very worried as a union. Is the government going to continue being violent towards the issue of vendors? How violent are they going to be in future? Now, this will obviously lead to a situation where vendors will be more resolute and galvanized towards their need and their right to survival in an economy that is very hostile to their trade. Then the union also demands that the local authority assures an inclusive and transparent registration process of vendors free from political interference. In this regard, we have reports, and indeed it is so, that the so-called designated vending sites that have been created have been hijacked by political players, have been hijacked by police officers, have been hijacked by municipal council employees, leaving the vulnerable vendor more vulnerable. In other words, the solution, good as it may have been, has been hijacked by the very same people who are supposed to implement that policy. In this regard, it is in this light that the National Vendors Union has come out strongly in support of the vendors. The events of yesterday, which led to the arrest and detention of the leaders of the union, are just but an everyday occurrence to those who follow events that affect vendors on a day-to-day basis. The National Director of the Vendors Union, in his bravery, went on to face off with council officials and was also then followed by the chairman. The council officials who were brutally assaulting vendors who had only come to demand their wares that had earlier on been confiscated. We applaud and indeed are encouraged and made the more stronger by the actions of these people in trying to stand up for what they believe to be right and to stand up against what they believe to be wrong. We condemn in the strongest terms the arrest of the national chairman, Mr. Sten Zorwadza, the national director, Mr. Samuel Wadzai, Lucy Makunde, the office administrator, and all the other vendors that were arrested yesterday. And we therefore demand their unconditional and immediate release of these vendors. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for that. Now we hand over to Promise Mukwananzi, the representative from ZISO.
Thank you, moderator. We are here in solidarity with our colleagues from NAVUZ. We obviously are very concerned about the human rights situation in the country, the escalation of repression is a cause for concern for us. We note the paradoxical situation that what is actually improving is state repression rather than the economy. And we are worried about that. We condemn in the strongest possible terms the unjustified and illegal arrests of the leaders of the vendors union in Zimbabwe. We want to say that this is a reflection of a deep-seated problem in the country that needs serious reflection by the government of the day. The government of the day has failed on its electoral promises to provide the 2 million jobs that they promised. They have failed on their constitutional obligations to create a conducive economic environment for people to fend for their families and for their children. And yet, the government responds by arresting the very people who are trying to make a living out of what is there. We want to state this is just but the beginning of a process of ensuring that this government is brought to a negotiating table to dialogue with the informal sector. The use of force is not going to solve the problem. It is in our view quite worrying that government continues to view itself as an enforcer rather than an enabler. We want to reiterate that government must see itself as a mediator, as an enabler, to ensure that the issues which the vendors and other informal traders have been talking about are addressed in an amicable manner. In so doing, we insist that the government must take a human rights-based approach, must exercise self-restraint, and come up with a democratic platform where the issues and the challenges of the vendors can be amicably resolved. In the absence of that, there will be no option, but there is going to be an escalation and scaling up of the battles between the vendors and the government. As I said earlier on, we are in solidarity with NAVUZ. We will continue to work with NAVUZ in calling upon the government to create a platform for dialogue and insist that should that dialogue platform not be created, the government is going to continue to waste its limited resources in a futile attempt to drive vendors out of town. They can drive them out today, but if there are no jobs, if there are no other sources of livelihood, the vendors will be back in the streets tomorrow. So this is a futile exercise. They have tried it in the past. They must learn that intimidation is not going to work. We therefore condemn the state's brutal responses. We know that there are people who are currently locked up in the cells who are seriously injured, who were needlessly injured by a paranoid state apparatus. We hope that the responsible authorities can react with immediate effect in ensuring that those that were injured in the skirmishes are given access to medication as soon as it is practically possible. We also hope that the wheels of justice can turn now those that are responsible for the assault of the vendors and the leadership of the vendors union. We state as well that the actions that were taken by the state are inimical to the progress that has been made in as far as democratic reforms of this country are concerned. The government must instead move with speed to actualize and implement the provisions of the new constitution. Our view is that the majority of the laws that are being used to bundle out vendors are actually now unconstitutional or have been outdated. It is so ironic that a government which claims to have fought for the liberation of this country so that the black people can have access to the CBDs, can pursue economic prosperity, is the same government that now relies on those colonial laws to drive its own people out of its major cities. So I want to thank you and say that we are in solidarity with NAVUZ, and we will work together to escalate what we believe are very legitimate efforts to bring the government to reason. And in that context, we are going to continue to do everything that is permissible in a democratic society, that we are entitled to under the laws of the country and the constitution of the country, to pile pressure on the government to see sense in the need for dialogue and to find an amicable solution to the economic crisis as well as to the plight. I think.
Thank you, Mr. Mukwananzi. Now we hand over to the chairperson of CRA, Mr. Simbarashuma.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think before I read our statement, I must say that I'm personally worried by what is going on in our cities. I was touched yesterday to see a journalist covering this, what happened in town house yesterday, being beaten up and being detained for no apparent reason except that of just covering the event. To me, that is an attack on the fourth estate of the state, an attack on journalists, an attack on the freedom of expression, and that is to be condemned in the strongest of terms. And secondly, I think our city fathers, the mayor included, are getting it all wrong. What needs to be pushed out of town or even out of this country is xenophobia. That is the party responsible for this chaos, this deep-seated chaos that we are in at the moment. So let us not think about chasing away vendors. Why should you chase away vendors? They are just a result of this economic collapse that we have been witnessing since around 2000. So I will personally call Manyenyen to shape up or ship out. Because we cannot continue to have this situation where vendors are driven each and every day out of. I was again touched seeing some vendors who cannot even speak, who cannot hear, being beaten, being forced to move from this position to that position. What kind of a state are we in? As we are speaking right now, we all know that 16 vendors have been arrested. And out of those 16, 6 of them have been badly injured, but they are in cells at the moment. They were not given that opportunity to get medical attention, something that is constitutionally provided for. So I want to make it very clear that it's worrisome. And going forward, it's not going to be business as usual. It's not going to be business as usual. So let me Combined Artisans Association. The Combined Artisans Association condemns in the strongest terms the arrest of the National Vendors Association of Zimbabwe chairperson, director, and 14 of their members at the Harare Town House yesterday, the 14th of July 2015. CRA is outraged at the heavy-handedness of the Harare Municipal Police, who have taken the law into their own hands and wantonly beat and harass defenseless vendors. At least 6 of the union members were beaten and sustained injuries. The leaders and their members were arrested at Town House when they sought answers about the fate of their ways and their ways that are continually being confiscated and destroyed by municipal police. Some actually are being taken for personal use. The association is concerned that the city authorities have allowed the municipal police to act outside their mandate by using brute force and have thus abandoned the mechanisms for peaceful dialogue. CRA also condemns government's response to the issue of vending and the informal economy. Latest statistics indicated that over 94% of Zimbabwe's economy has been informalized. An estimated 100,000 people are involved in the informal trade in the city of Harare. Considering that unemployment is already topping over 85%, we expected the government and the city of Harare to embrace the positive role that vending and the informal economy can play. In light of the above, CRA demands the immediate release of the chairperson of NAVUZ, Mr. Zoroaster, and the director of NAVUZ, together with the 4 other vendors that I have mentioned that are part of NAVUZ, were arrested yesterday. 2, we call upon the mayor of Harare, Councillor Ben Manyenyen, to cause an investigation into cases of abuse of authority by municipal police, which fly in the face of fundamental freedoms guaranteed in the new constitution. 3, we strongly believe that dialogue is the answer to these challenges and urge the government of Zimbabwe and the city of Harare to halt the forced evictions of vendors, confiscation and destroying of their property, and develop a tripartite negotiating forum, including the government, business community, and the vendor representative to chart a lasting solution. We demand that the government relook into the restoration of vendors and develop mechanisms to weed out space barrels and party political interference. 5, we implore the government and the city to recognize the developmental role of the informal sector and the potential contribution it can make to the economic growth of the country. Lastly, which is 6, we urge the government to develop programs and strategies that enhance from survivalist to entrepreneurial nature. The programs must explore means to promote and protect the informal sector business. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moyo. Are there any questions to the floor? We'll take a round of 3 then.
I just want to maybe seek clarification from NAVUZ members. You mentioned that there is a politicization of this whole vending issue. I would just like for you to clarify where the politicization of this is coming from. Who exactly is politicizing this issue? Is it on the part of the ruling party, or we also have the opposition politicizing the whole matter? Considering that some of your members actually have affiliation to the opposition parties. So who exactly is politicizing this matter?
Before we allow them to answer, we'll take 2 questions. Any questions? I think for now we can answer that one.
Okay, thank you. The politicization of vending is something that came about. That is something that is not recent. When there was an influx of vendors into the city, there appeared to be a chance for people claiming political muscle to try and get money to defraud the desperate vendors. How they did that is that a person who claims political links would come at a certain area where there is a large concentration of vendors. You would put up some sort of structure and start demanding payment from the vendors under that structure. Now, we termed these people space barons, as alluded to by Mr. Moyo. They became known as space barons. Now, initially we had suspicions that these people are working in cahoots with senior officials from the city council. And from the way obviously that person has got some sort of political backing. One, that's how the vending enterprise became politicized. Because for you then to be able to be there, you had to be aligned or whatever political party the space baron will be telling you to do. And it would really be wrong for me not to mention that the space barons have been aligned to ZANU-PF or are aligned to the ruling party. There are examples of such a space baron. The motion process that was carried out by the also had a political dynamic to it, in that members, especially from the National Vendors Union, which has been termed to be pro-MDC. So our members have been barred. The non-members have been barred from engaging in registration. And where they have been allowed, it is in cases where they have not been known to be aligned to NAVUZ, or they were just registered just to appear as if the process is inclusive. But out of our membership, very few, an insignificant number, managed to then be part of the process. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions to the floor? Yes, Mr. Kasim.
Sorry, this is just a follow-up on the issue of the space barons. You alluded to the fact that some of the space barons were actually reflecting that they are aligned to ZANU-PF. Would you deny that there are also certain space barons who are also aligned to MDC?
I would not deny that. I would not deny that there are space barons aligned to the MDC. Although, as a union, we have not yet members coming in to complain that they are being fleeced of their money by space barons claiming to be MDC. That is as far as we know. Thank you.
I said corrected. From my own understanding, the council was responsible for registering vendors. So in a way, you said some of your members couldn't be registered because of their political affiliation. So are you in a way trying to say that council is one way or the other affiliated to one party, or is not open? Is not open to everything?
First of all, I'd like to correct you. I did not say our members were bad because they were affiliated to a political party. They were bad because they were affiliated to us. Right. And then, as for council, I think it would be proper to take it from the basis that there are policymakers at council, there are implementers at council. The councillors will come and talk, including the mayor. They will give a position which may not then be supported or followed by the implementers, who are now the technocrats, the town clerk going downwards. And what we have seen from the fact that there have been space barons clearly telling the world that they are aligned to the ruling party, and the council officials not doing anything about it, ultimately led us to conclude that the same technocrats at council are also not politically neutral.
So is it safe to say that the process, council is not being open in this process?
Council is not being open. Council is open to manipulation by politics. The people who are supposed to implement these things, they would come and tell you one thing, they would do the other. And you would also find that people who work at council have also hijacked the process, citing political affiliation. You have policemen also coming in to register in place of the ordinary vendor.
Any more questions? Yes.
Actually, it's not a question. I just wanted to also to respond to my brother's. The issue of registration process, my brother, it was open to manipulation, as the chairman said. How are we saying that? There were some sites which were saying the vendors are supposed to be registered. Some of the sites were supposed to bring up a Queen of Grace card for you to get registered, or a gift card. I don't know who, because they were council officials, but they were representatives from those people who were buying people. If you don't have those things, those were prerequisites for you to get registered. So, as a union, we feel the process was not free and fair, and we demand, if possible, we need an audit of how the system was done.
Okay.
Okay, there's been allegations in some reports in some part of the media that NAVUZ, part of the leadership in NAVUZ is not are not vendors. There are allegations that most of you are activists or political party representatives, and I would like to know, like, the composition of your leadership. Is there India representing party interests? Considering that David quote one of the editors said that there is no vendor who can wear a suit, but but my question to you is, who are you representing? Do you have like membership or any membership or any members that you have, like, who are registered, who are under you?
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to start by correcting you, or the source where you got, you said the editor, that you see a vendor wearing a suit. You see, this is how bad things have come, my brother. When we were growing up, we used to know vendors as, or some nice structure, they're selling things. But the economy has gone down at an alarming rate. We have vendors with master's degree. I see some vendors in here with degrees who just walked in. Okay? And we have vendors, people who have held senior positions at some companies, but the companies have since gone down. They are vendors. I don't know if you would want them to then bend their suits that are in their wardrobes so that they agree to be vendors, or to fit some already defined definition of a vendor. They are vendors. And as for who we represent vendors. I am a vendor. He is a vendor. We started the organization as vendors. We started working as an informal organization without even being registered, until when the abuses on vendors became so much that we saw the need to formalize. And it was a grouping of vendors who sat down and found ways to mobilize resources to have a formalized grouping of vendors representing vendor interests. Thank you.
Any more questions? Dr. Rwanya first, then Cousin.
I just wanted to assist my colleagues on NAVUZ to explain the fact that a vendor is not defined by their phenotype or physical appearance, to use the biological term, by their physical appearance or by what they wear, but by what they do. Their business, their everyday form of existence, their everyday form of survival. But more fundamentally, the political economy of Zimbabwe has shifted fundamentally since 2000. The vendor of 1999 and the vendor of 2014 are different. If you do the demographic profile of vendors, you will find someone with a BSc in mathematics selling goods in town. Not because he wants to do that, but that is what the circumstances demands. What matters now is the question of livelihood. If you have no job and you don't want to do something that will make your children or your family survive because you think you have a degree, you will die. So the economics of the stomach is what determines what a person does. So that argument that a vendor does not wear a suit is very simplistic. And I don't want to use the word myopic because but I've seen it in the state media. And to say that I know a person who did accounts at the University of Science and Technology. And that person, what he does is that he takes clothes in most mabhero aya kuuya nawo muno andone 6 trucks dzanotoshandisa kuita and is surviving better than a middle manager in a bank. So if you think that a vendor represents poverty, I think no, it is fundamentally shifted and changed. If you have 90% unemployment, the question is 90% of our people do you mean about my investors? No one managers my banks or that trade. So if you think that a vendor does not wear a suit up,
yeah, I just wanted clarity on the process that is being done by the state of Harare, whether it is wrong or not, but considering the mayhem that may have been caused in the city, I don't want to look at the reasons why. At times you walk into First Street, then you find Marubo Jashpa again, and so forth. So the city of Harare was saying, let's move these people to new sites which have got sanitation, toilets, and so forth, space, and to clear these spaces. That's what the city of Harare is saying. Are you embracing the idea? And if you're embracing the idea, are you also educating your fellow members in NAVUZ that the idea is wrong? Maybe what is just not wrong is 1, 2, 3, 4. But if this is ironed out, please let's move on.
We embrace the idea totally. The idea that there needs to be some semblance of order in the streets. We embrace the idea. But what we are saying is that we cannot sacrifice survival at the altar of beauty of the cities. we are saying, and like what even the High Court said, that before eviction of vendors, due process should be followed. Alternative vending sites should be put in place. Alternative vending sites that are not going to be a health hazard. One of the reasons why they are saying vendors should move out is that they are a potential health hazard. But from our point, the streets are actually better than where they are trying to relocate the vendors to. Yes. If you have been to the areas that they are telling the vendors to go, these are just dusty pieces of land. And really, I do not know how that can be called an alternative vending site. But the process is good, we embrace it, and we urge council to come to the negotiating table. We can actually help and assist each other in coming up with better solutions rather than a wholesale removal of people and just dumping them. This is not even, it does not look like they are removing people or relocating people, so to speak, but it's a way of dumping people out of the CBD, the way you would dump filth out of your house onto somewhere where people cannot see it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take Lucy first, then
if you were in a state of Harare's shoes, what would be your best solutions in addressing the vending problem?
Our best solution is to depart from the attitude that we know it all and we can do it all on our own. We would call all the relevant stakeholders, sit them down, prosecute the real issue and come up with solutions that are agreed by all.
I just wanted to maybe ask what your take is on your view on the state media allegations that there are big wigs behind vendors who are using vendors to peddle smuggled goods such as clothes and other items. They specifically named Nigerians and Chinese as the source of these goods, and they are doing this to evade tax. So, are there any vendors in the streets who are working goods and evading tax? And what is your take on that?
Yes, as National Vendors Union, what we know, what we rely on, we get from our members. We are a membership-based organization, given the mandate by the very same vendors. We also saw that report in the state media, but we have not yet any of our members coming to tell us that they are fronts for Nigerians or Chinese. We represent vendors as they come. We do not know, or we have not yet any reports as to who may be behind certain sections of vendors.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Any questions? There seem to be none. Any last words from the floor?
Yes, to point out that NAVUZ remains committed to a process where where the government, through its agencies, engage with all the relevant stakeholders in coming up with peaceful solutions to the challenges currently being faced in the sector. Violence will never be a solution, and like I said, it is just a cosmetic solution meant to cow people and drive them out of their livelihoods. But what will happen is, because this is a question of survival, no one is a vendor because they wanted to be vendors. Vendors is more of a refuge occupation. There's very same vendors who are on the streets who will run away when whoever comes wielding baton sticks. Are the very same vendors who will be back in the streets tomorrow. Because the choice really is between life and death. The choice is between my child going to school or not. The choice is between having eaten something before you go to bed or not. So the vendors will keep coming into the street unless the government comes to the table.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to respond to the question about the Nigerians, Chinese. If indeed that is the case, I think that the state must actually arrest the Nigerians and the Chinese. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Mr.
Yeah, I just want to say that phobia must come to an end.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this press conference. We've come to an end. Thank you so much.